Hi, I'm Becky. Welcome to the beauty of symmetry in Chinese calligraphy. Symmetry is very important in our civilization. If you ever come to China, you will realize that many of the architectures were built based on symmetry, including the famous Forbidden City in Beijing. So, calligraphy is very important in our culture and also is based on the philosophy or the standard of symmetry. Okay, so before we start our lesson, I would like to ask you a question. Are we writing the traditional characters or the simplified characters when we are practicing calligraphy? Think about it. This is a question that one of my students asked me last week. To answer this question, first we need to make it clear the definitions. What are simplified characters and what are traditional characters? Okay, so when we mention the simplified characters, it means the China government used to publish simplified characters at least twice. One time in 1956 and the second time was in 1964, but the second version was stopped in no time because they simplified too much and people got confused about the second version, so they have to stop. And then the current simplified list was published in 1986. And the third point is 2,235 characters were simplified in this list. Do you know how many Chinese characters do we have? Guess. We have nearly 100,000 characters in our writing system. Are you scared? No worry, okay. The most common used characters are just about 3,000. So most of our Chinese people also don't know most of our characters. So about the 3,000 common used characters can cover about 99% of the books or the medias, the daily use things. So no worry about it. We also can read all of it, not even 10% or 20%. So don't worry about it. Okay, then I heard this is the most complicated Chinese characters. It includes 57 strokes. Actually, I knew these characters from two of my Australian students. One day in our lesson, the two boys wrote this character on our whiteboard and asked me to read. What the hell was that? So they said it's Biang. I wanted to look it up in the dictionary, but I couldn't type it with the Chinese typing software because it's too awkward, it's too weird, okay? So it doesn't exist, it even doesn't exist in our typing software. So what's this? This character only used in one kind of noodles, which called biang biang mian, the biang biang noodles. So it's just a noodles name in Shanxi province. So no worry, this kind of strange characters or funny characters are not those common used characters. I can't remember it either. Okay, so the second question is, do we use traditional characters before 1986? Because just now we mentioned that in 1986, we published the simplified words list, right? So before that, what characters do we use? Were they traditional characters? It's not really. Still, then we come back to the second definition. What are traditional characters? And the narrow definition is Traditional characters were those characters replaced by the simplified characters. Means those like older characters of the 2,235 simplified characters. That's the narrow definition. And the broad definition is all current characters before simplified. Now, we have another definition, another concept. What is current characters? What is current characters? Current characters are not simplified characters. Okay, so generally speaking, our writing system, in the whole Chinese history, the linguists divided our writing system into two parts, the ancient characters and the current characters. The ancient characters were called 篆书. If you ever take our Chinese calligraphy lesson for beginners, you will know what is 篆书, right? And 篆书were those characters used before the year 207 BC. So 篆书will also include like 大篆, which means known as like a big 篆书, and 小篆, small 篆. So in Chinese calligraphy for beginners, what we learned was 小篆. Okay, and then we come to the current characters. The 小篆only exists in Chinese history. Not only exists, it's only used as the official characters for about 15 years, not a long time. So, and it quickly changed into 隶书, and then 隶书changed into 楷书. But they are not. They don't really follow the timeline. Actually, they gradually developed into the next generation of Chinese characters. So the 隶书 and the 楷书 actually appeared. We believe that they already appeared at the same time when 篆书 were used as the official characters. So we consider 隶书 as the first generation of the current characters, and it was developed from the 篆书, is the faster way to write the Chinese characters, and then the 楷书. So these two were the characters used after the year 207 BC. So you can see that the current characters means these two characters were used in China for over 2,000 years already. Okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. Now I give you an example. So take this character as an example. It pronounced as 风, which means wind, and this character is a simplified character. So in 篆书, it looks like this, and then it changed into 隶书. 隶书come to here. So what do you think of the biggest difference? You can see the 篆书is like only include like straight lines or curving line and curving line, right? And then we come to this 隶书is starting to become like what we call square characters. And then 隶书comes into 楷书. This is even more square. Okay, so this is the ancient, what I said, the ancient Chinese characters, and these two are the current characters. Okay, now we know that Chinese characters are combined with the ancient characters and the current characters. For ancient characters, we mean 篆书, and 小篆 is a type of 篆书, which was the official characters in Qin dynasty, the same dynasty as the Great Wall was built. And for current characters, we mean 隶书, which we believe is the faster writing way of 篆书, and then 楷书. So 楷书 was developed from 隶书, and both 隶书 and 楷书 are current characters. So, according to the broad definition of traditional characters, both 隶书 and 楷书 before 1986 were what we called traditional characters. So, and then in 1986, we have simplified characters. Our government simplified more than 2,000 characters. So, when we study calligraphy, we need to learn from our ancient masters, which means we learn 篆书, we also learn traditional characters, means the traditional current characters, including 隶书 and 楷书, and other writing styles developed from 隶书. We have several other writing styles which were developed from 隶书. So, can we write simplified characters in calligraphy? What do you think of that? Yes, you can, but for beginners or as the right way to learn Chinese calligraphy, as we need to learn from our ancestors, we need to learn traditional characters and the ancient characters. Because when we have the simplified characters, our ancestors already died, so they don't have any calligraphy textbooks for us. So, but at the end, when we can write our own styles, we can write simplified characters. Yes, for sure. Okay, now I have a question for you. Which is the easiest calligraphy style? I mean, which do you think is the style that a beginner should start to learn? Okay, think about it. I will tell you the answer, my answer, in next lesson.